Hey, what's up everybody? Primus22 here, bringing you another episode of the Transformers Lore Podcast. The Transformers Lore Podcast serves to cover information in the Transformers multiverse that has no visual element to it, and thus we had to cover it in an audio style. And today we're continuing on with our adventure down the story of Beast Wars Uprising with the storyline called Intersectionality. Now, intersectionality is sort of the theory that everything, intersects. That society is, determined by culture, geography, language, time, everything intersects to create one point. And in this story, the intersectionality is the connection sort of between the grand Uprising story we're getting in the main series and the original story of Alone Together with Transmutate and Rampage. So today, we're going to get to see what's up with Rampage, Transmutate, and the Destructons like Imperius Delirious. Now, I don't know how good I'm going to do this episode because intersectionality is really, really long. It has a lot of characters that I just don't care about. So at the end of the day, we're trying to do broad strokes here. Try to cover the story in broad strokes. So the first of all, this part takes place almost immediately after Lio Convoy makes his speech starting the rebellion. So we're sort of backtracking here. We're going back in time just after Broken Windshields. We get to see the humans. The humans Chalk, Una, and Blix. You might remember them as the Beast Wars cave people. But they're alive thanks to the whatever project, the Eutychus Project or something like that. And they're alive. They're on this ship called Spooky at a Distance. And they're patrolling pretty much the allowed zone with Cybertronians. They detect that there's a rebellion on the planet. And they're like, okay, now we have to pay attention to see what happens. Because we only allow one Cybertronian ship outside the allowed zone to sort of stalk out its territory, and that's the Dinosaur. And they're about to get the signal that there's a rebellion. Let's see what they'll do. And this whole beginning part's just cancerous. It's just terribly written. Of course, there's this thing that science fiction tends to ignore, and that's that in the far future, it seems like language just doesn't change. The reason for this is because it will make for a better story if your people watching can understand what everyone's saying. Beast Wars Uprising just straight up and gives Una and Chalk and all of them this variation of English that's that's almost not comprehensible by us. So pretty much it's just reading a bunch of gibberish. They also have an AI on the computer called Screwball, and Zier goes by Zim, Zier pronouns. It's just headache-inducing. Also, they finally reference how Black Arachnia came. They talk about how 15 days ago they monitored an interdimensional breach, and that's how Black Arachnia came to this universe after fleeing the Transtech universe. Of course, we don't know exactly the specifics of it, but, they reference that, hey, she jumped universes. Anyway, Dinosaur is a ship that has a Predacon crew, Maximal officers, one builder, a Micromaster named Synapse, and their captain, who's a builder, who they've never seen before. And Synapse sort of serves as the liaison between the captain and the rest of the crew. The crew's very much based off of their Beast Wars Neo counterparts. You have Longrack and Magmatron there, Anyway, they get a distress signal from LGC 8803, which you might remember from Alone Together is the planet that Transmutate and Rampage landed on. So they decide, okay, let's go investigate that, and all of a sudden an intruder ship launches an attack on the Dinosaur. And really we'll learn that this is actually the Destructons launching an attack. They sort of drew them into a trap. But this isn't before some Predacon forces and Maximal forces managed to land on the planet. Meanwhile, one, I think Predacon named Hydra gets footage of the rebellion starting on Cybertron, and then Synapse goes ahead and kills him or her. I don't remember the gender. I think it's a him. Synapse kills him. And then Killer Punch is another Predacon, I think, that's dispatched to find what happened to Hydra. And as he goes looking, the ship starts to move around until it finally, I think a wall comes in and kills him. And we learn that the Dinosaur is actually Trypticon, the great Decepticon war criminal. Most of this book is pretty much just fighting, having to deal with this battle. So again, we're covering this in broad strokes. But Longrack eventually learns that the ship is Trypticon, and that Synapse is sort of killing them because, they're builders, and these guys are Maximals and Predacons. There's an uprising, a war going on, so may as well start killing each other. So Longwreck decides to kill the captain and take the ship. The Destructons are trying to take the ship so they can go to Cybertron, because first they were trying to get there, but then they couldn't get to Cybertron because they weren't a Cybertronian ship. The Human Confederacy shot them down. So here they are trying to take a Cybertronian ship so they'll be allowed to go to Cybertron. Anyway, Magmatron eventually finds the captain, who is actually Full Tilt. Full Tilt sort of integrated into Trypticon. Basically, Trypticon was injured during the Great War, so Full Tilt went under the Power Master process and sort of combined with Trypticon to keep him alive. And interestingly enough, Full Tilt and Trypticon sort of want to join forces with the Maximals and Predacons against the Builders. We're sort of saying that the Builders aren't exactly united, that there are still Builders that want to help the Maximals and Predacons. But the Predacons are pretty much horrified that they've been flying, that there's this terrible war criminal that is their ship. And so they decide to lobotomize Trypticon. Meanwhile on the planet, Ape-Link and Saberback have been walking around the planet. They're Maximals and Predacons, I think. It's easy to lose track of who's a Maximal and who's a Predacon in this series. Ape-Link's a Maximal. I don't know Saberback. But they found this weird ziggurat type thing, and they're on some sort of trippy, whoa type deal, like having this weird mental mind trip. Because apparently LG8 whatever this planet's called actually was originally called Metascan Omega, and was the home planet for a species called the Logicons. And the Logicons were at war with the Destructons, and they fought eons ago, and the Ziggurats are the last vestiges of knowledge. But the Logicons eventually left the Ziggurat as their last bit of information. And that, in fact, it was the information on the planet that caused the Destructons to come to this planet to begin with. And they eventually got the know-how to build technology to shoot down Transmutate and Rampage's ship. Which, by the way, a lot of the forces who have landed on the planet have rendezvoused with Transmutate and Rampage. And so they're working together. And again, it's a big battle against the Destructons. Trypticon eventually begins to start to fall from space. But Ape-Link and Saberback get power from the Logicons to, sort of magically stop Trypticon from crashing. Instead, Trypticon transforms, lands on his feet, then transforms into city mode. And so the Destructons are pretty much wiped out. And the Maximals and Predacons decide that they're going to set up, I think, Full Tilt and Synapse. I think they're dead. I'm not entirely sure. I have this problem where I whenever an enemy gets killed in a story, I just forget about it. I just don't know what happened until I have to go back and relook. And this was hard to do, guys, because it's a really, really long book. So I won't be able to cover all the details. You see how much I struggle on something that's only 16 pages. So yeah. Anyway, Trypticon becomes known as Dinosaur City, and sort of half of them decide to stay on the planet to turn into a trading hub, while the other half decides to go out into space and return to Cybertron and fight in the Uprising. Rampage is part of the forces that are going to Cybertron. I don't remember what happened to Transmutate. I don't know. I can't remember. Oh well. There was a shuttle where Imperious Delirious tried to escape, Trypticon before it crashed. However, the epilogue shows that Imperious Delirious is actually still alive inside the computer of the shuttle. And so he's going to come back one day. So yeah. That covers this story in broad strokes. I really didn't have a lot of time this week, but, it was a long, long story. Some of these Beast Wars Uprising stories can pretty much be their own full novel in their own right. But yeah, that's this part of the Transformers Lore podcast of the Beast Wars Uprising series. It's been a while since I sat down and recorded a podcast too, so I'm sort of off today. But Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you like. Follow me on social media for updates. Join the Discord server to join the community. Join the subreddit for further discussion of Transformers lore. And have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.